when is, the indicator whether you should buy out a competitor that maybe is taking up some of your customers that you could potentially have versus just growing organically?
Yeah, great question. And this is a question that a lot of operators ask. Do I build, greenfield, or do I buy the competitor? One thing I'll tell you, when you buy a company, they often come with a lot of headaches. They often don't integrate nearly as well as you think they will. The cultures don't match, and even customers might fall off, or that you might pick up additional legal liability, and it's difficult. It can take 6 months plus to get the acquisition to really perform at the level that you think you're acquiring it for. And oftentimes, launching a new marketplace takes far less than that, and you don't have any of the liabilities or potential headaches associated with it. So I share that with you because buying a company is very hard to pull off. It seems very exciting and seems like it's a shortcut to growth, but it's often not a shortcut. In fact, it can delay growth, it can hinder growth. And there's statistically about 80% of acquisitions don't work. So about 80% of the time they fail. So oftentimes we think, oh, I'll just buy a company. What we don't realize is we buy a big headache. Now, it makes sense if the company is well run, if the financials are airtight, they ran a very disciplined shop, if you can eliminate the founder pretty quickly and or keep the founder on in a long-term role where you're going to be very happy working with this founder and they're going to be very happy working with you. That's rare because most entrepreneurs don't want to report to people, and certainly they want to do things their way. But it can work if the founder is properly incentivized and it's a good working relationship between the two. And then the culture, is it a cultural match? Is your team and their team gonna operate the same level of efficiency? Are they gonna work as hard? If you guys are often working weekends, does their team work weekends? If they don't, your team will start to regret their team. There's a lot that, nuance that goes into getting it right. And sometimes when I do an acquisition, we buy out all the old team right before closing. We have a list of who we're gonna buy out. On the day of closing, we give everyone a generous severance and maybe only keep a few people because we just want to use the acquisition to gain the customer base and the footprint, but then we want to staff it with our own culture. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but if you're looking at acquisitions, be happy to share more insight with you on that. It's an area that I've spent a lot of time on, and I had some very successful acquisitions, and I've had some that have been very tough. So it's a very difficult thing to get right. I'm supporting a company that's acquiring a number of different automotive companies. So they're buying automotive collision repair, car dealerships, and so they're acquiring. I think they have over 1,000 employees in something like 46 different companies right now, and they're continuing to acquire a bunch more companies. And oftentimes they acquire people that are distressed, and then they integrate them. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you is built upon some of the work that I'm also doing actively, and other companies are acquisitive right now.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay.
Good
Thank
meeting
you.
you.
My question is one that involves a sort of mentorship of its own. And I've been advised from some very good mentors of my own, suggested I really needed to find a great number two. And I feel like I've found that number two. And now thinking about number three and number four. And so my question is, how much time do I continue to put into finding, additional people? Or since I found a number two, do I start to delegate that to that person and say, you find your number two and your number three, and then so on and so on? What's the better way to handle that process?
How big of a company do you have now?
We've got about 40.
40. And so you have your number two person. Is that right? And then how many people are on your executive team?
7.
7 people on the team. And do all 7 of them report directly to you?
Yes, although some of them kind of work together mostly and then come as jointly on a couple, almost like little subcommittees, if you will.
Got it. As the CEO, you should be the one heavily involved in recruiting. You never want to lose sight of that. Your discernment has been refined after many years. It's been sharpened through heartbreak, through trial, through error, through bad hires, through late nights, through your discernment is the most valuable asset in the company. And no one else will have your discernment ever. You should always be involved in hiring. Now, where you're placed in the chain might be that you're part of an interview panel, so they have to go through multiple touch points before they meet with you. but you want to be involved in all hiring. And your job is to say no to the candidates that people want to hire. And your job is to constantly say, this person doesn't, match the criteria of the search, because we're all people. And I could tell you're a nice guy. We'll like the candidate. Therefore, we'll be biased. We'll look past some things in the candidate, and the team will look past those things. And so you need to have somebody that's going to say, this candidate can't come into this company, or we can find a better candidate. And I want to make sure we go find a better candidate, which means that they got to go do more work. But that's our job, is to make sure that we're hiring the best of the best people, and that we're building a culture that is going to give us life. I ask myself these questions. Can I learn from this person? Right? Because if I'm not learning from the person, then I'm not growing. And if I'm not growing, I'll suffer. So can I learn from the person? Is the person inspiring? Do I feel like, wow, this person's going to get me working at a higher pace and make me actually perform at a higher level of excellence? Yeah, right? And my team by default won't naturally want to do that. They'll want to hire somebody that makes them feel good about their job, that makes them feel more secure about their job in general. So my job is to counterbalance that by hiring people that bring a new level of energy, a new level of problem solving, and get everyone activated at a new level. And sometimes that means you hire people that are more competent than the existing team that you have, and that raises the caliber of the existing team.
The only nuance that I've struggled with, because I agree with that, and I do stay involved in every hiring decision, but the one I've struggled with is I don't want to be seen as too controlling, and at some point, that bringing on somebody, if some of my team is particularly executive team, if they feel strongly about somebody, to defer to their judgment some, as long as, to your point though, I hadn't thought about just being the one who says no, but when it comes to saying yes, and there's two good options, to give them the authority to say, why don't you choose, right?
Yeah, I get corrected all the time. And I'm happy to. I want them to push back. I want them to say, no, you missed this. Like I might say, I don't think this is the best candidate we can do. And then they might say, well, let me tell you why this is. That's a great conversation, and I might very well be persuaded. But you have to bring, facts. You have to have done your homework, get to be prepared, because, I'm going to challenge your assumptions. My job as a CEO is to challenge your assumptions and to test your work, right? And so you might really... Yeah, and to help you see blind spots. We all have biases. We tend to hire people that are like us, and people that that we're going to feel comfortable with. And we want to hire people that are going to challenge us, that are going to, they're going to inspire us, that are going to perform at a level that gets us to perform at a higher level. I always equate this. I play basketball, I used to anyways, and if we're playing basketball and I'm playing with people better than me, you'll get the best out of me. Because I don't want to pass that ball recklessly. I don't want to miss a layup. I won't go for a dunk. I'm going for the layup because I'm guaranteed to get the layup. The dunk, I don't jump as high as I used to. So I'm going to play my best game if I'm on a team that plays at a level better than I do. If I'm playing with a team that plays at a level beneath me, I'll be sloppy. I won't pass as aggressively. More injuries occur. So we all want to play on the very best team possible. And my job as the CEO is to make sure that I'm on that. And for my own sanity, I want to be on a team that I love being on. So I can't allow them to bring someone onto the team that is going to weigh down the team or weigh me down.
That's good. That's terrific. Thanks, Ryan. That's what I was hoping. I feel like I had some of that, but you really nailed it on the no part. So that's really great.
Yeah. You're, and this is good for everyone else to hear. There's a full-on assault against your standards at all times. Your values, we all have the same values, but everyone's trying to assault your standards. Can we get this guy to lower his standards as a founder? Because that makes our jobs easier, right? And so there's a full-on assault against your standards at all times. And my job is to be like, no, I'm holding true to my standards, even if that means more work for everybody in the company. I'm sorry, I can't budge on my standards.
That's great.
All right, my friend.
Like that.
Look forward to talking to you further.